The exact moment an avoidant realizes you're done trying. There is a moment, quiet, sudden, and shocking, when an avoidant finally realizes something they never expected. You are done trying. And this moment doesn't arrive with loud arguments, dramatic goodbyes, or emotional speeches. It arrives in silence. It arrives when you stop doing the one thing they thought you would never stop doing, chasing them. For weeks, months, maybe even years, you've carried the emotional weight of the relationship, checking in, reassuring them, calming the storms they created, and fighting for a connection they kept running from. But the switch flips the moment you stop reaching, stop fixing, stop waiting. That is the moment everything shifts, not for you, but for them. Avoidants build a life around escape routes. They keep emotional emergency exits everywhere. When things get too close, they pull away. When things get too calm, they get suspicious. When things get intimate, they feel overwhelmed. But here's the secret. They only feel this comfortable because they assume you'll always be there. They treat your consistency as permanent. They treat your patience as endless. They treat your effort as guaranteed. And when you finally decide to pull your energy back, they don't understand it at first. They think it's temporary. They think you're just tired. They think you're playing some emotional strategy. But when your silence continues, when your energy stops flowing toward them, when your attention disappears, that's when the avoidant nervous system panics. Because for the first time, the emotional gap they created isn't being filled by you. It's just empty. The first thing an avoidant feels when they realize you're truly done trying is confusion. Real confusion. They aren't wired to understand emotional loss in real time. They understand it in hindsight, when it's already too late. At first, they tell themselves you're just busy. Then they tell themselves you're just being dramatic. Then they say you're trying to punish them. But then, there comes that very specific moment. A moment where they open their phone expecting a message from you that isn't there. A moment when something reminds them of you, and they instinctively reach out, then stop, because the energy is different now. A moment when they look at your social media and feel a twist in their stomach, because you look lighter, calmer, and that's when the truth hits them. You're no longer orbiting around them. You've stepped out of their emotional gravity. And here's what avoidants never admit. They don't fear closeness as much as they fear losing the person who kept giving them closeness. They don't fear commitment as much as they fear the moment someone stops committing to them. For avoidance, emotional safety came from your effort, from your devotion, from knowing that no matter how distant they became, you would always come back. But now you don't. And that creates a feeling they are not used to handling. Vulnerability. Not the soft, romantic vulnerability you hoped for. No. The vulnerability that feels like the ground underneath them has shifted, because suddenly the dynamic they relied on is broken. After confusion fades, something else rises. Curiosity. The avoidant wants to know why you stopped. They replay old conversations. They reread your messages. They analyze the tone of your last call. They start questioning themselves. Did I push too far? Did I say the wrong thing? Did I make them feel unwanted? This is the phase where they start to realize slowly and quietly that you were not asking for too much. You were asking for the bare minimum: presence, affection, partnership. And because you no longer ask, they finally see the value of what you wanted. Avoidants only understand the importance of closeness when the cost of losing it becomes real. Then comes the phase they hate the most: discomfort, emotional discomfort. Avoidants are trained to numb, distract, rationalize, and run. But when someone they depended on emotionally pulls away, their usual strategies stop working. Their distractions feel empty. Their solitude feels heavier. Their routines feel off. Because avoidants don't lose people slowly, they lose them suddenly. They don't see the clues. They don't interpret the signs. They only understand the ending when they turn around and realize the person holding the relationship together has disappeared. And this is the moment avoidants often experience a rare internal breakup, a breakup with the version of you who used to try, and it hurts more than they expect. One of the most powerful moments in this cycle is when an avoidant realizes they no longer have access to your emotional world. They can't text you to soothe their ego. They can't rely on you to fix their moods. They can't expect you to reach out when they withdraw. They can't treat you like emotional insurance. And this hits them hard because avoidants never expect to lose emotional access. They expect the other person to stay tied to them, even if the relationship itself collapses. When you cut that emotional cord, even if gently, even if quietly, they feel it like a sharp snap they can't undo. And then comes the shock of seeing you truly move on, the shock of you turning your attention inward, the shock of you healing, the shock of you glowing differently, not because you're pretending, but because you're no longer drained. Avoidants are not blind. They sense energy more than words. When you stop being emotionally available, your energy shifts, and avoidants feel that shift like a loss of control. They may try to test if you're really gone. A random message, a vague hey, a passive comment, a breadcrumb meant to see if you still respond. But when your response is calm, neutral, non-attached, that's when they understand you're not running back this time. You're not playing the old role. You're no longer emotionally dependent on their inconsistency. The final stage is realization, a realization that arrives too late, but arrives with full force. Avoidants suddenly understand that you weren't fragile. You were patient. You weren't demanding. You were committed. You weren't clingy. You were trying. And because they kept pulling away, you finally stopped. And now they feel the absence of what they once took for granted. It hits them late, but when it hits deeply. Avoidants don't cry right away. They don't break down instantly. But there's a moment, maybe weeks later, maybe months, when they feel a wave of regret. Not always because they lost you, but because they lost the version of themselves who could have grown with you had they tried. The truth is this: avoidants don't fear love. They fear the responsibility of being loved. And when the person who was willing to love them without conditions finally walks away, they are forced to face something they've been avoiding their entire life: themselves. And that is the moment they realize you were not the problem. You were the mirror. You showed them what connection could feel like. You showed them what safety could look like. And when you left, that mirror disappeared. Suddenly, they see their own patterns more clearly, and it scares them. But here's the part you need to hear. When an avoidant realizes you are done trying, it is not your loss, it is their awakening. You didn't walk away because you stopped caring. You walked away because you finally learned to care for yourself. Your silence is not punishment, it is protection. Your absence is not revenge, it is healing. And what the avoidant sees in that moment is not abandonment, it is strength. Because you did what they never had the courage to do. Choose yourself. In the end, the moment an avoidant realizes you're done trying is the moment they finally feel what you felt all along: the longing, the confusion, the fear, the regret. But by then, you're different, stronger, wiser, and no longer willing to shrink yourself for someone who wasn't ready to grow. That's the power of walking away, not to hurt them, but to save yourself. And that is the moment everything changes.